I'm well. How are you, Ben?
Ken, is there a crowd? Thanks, Ken.
Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, and I will start the Health and Human Services Board meeting for August 19th and call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
I don't think he's recording yet. Here we go. Kathy Leaf.
Here.
Kara Koch. Present. Dave Osnes. Scotty Yard.
Present.
Greg Telejohn.
Present.
Paulette Anderson. Deb Lindeman.
Here.
Natasha Ward.
Here.
Paul McGinnis.
Present.
Okay, very good. We have a quorum. Everybody's had a chance to read our minutes from July 15th. Are there any additions or corrections?
Can't hear you.
How about now, young doctor? Can you hear me now? Okay, it works better when I turn it on. Sorry, you guys. Apologize to that. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes from July 15th. Are there any additions or corrections? Not seeing any or hearing any, those will stand as approved. Before we go any farther, I would like to introduce Ken Witt, who is our new interim county attorney. And Ken, thank you for being with us. But this is a good way to end your first day, sir.
Yep, the day started off well.
Thank you. And we've got Adam that is sitting back over behind us that'll be running the timer, who is our public information officer. I'll get it right sooner or later, Adam. And with that one, we're going to start public comment. John Strom, please. And I would remind folks to hold everything to 2 minutes tonight. Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is John Strom. We live in the town of Forest, St. Croix County, Wisconsin. Our issue is large wind turbines and health problems. I am amazed. Being here every month, I see how hard everyone works. Now with the pandemic, it's plain crazy. I hear requests to use science and data, and still there are people who will not listen. Lessons that were learned 100 years ago are now ignored. Our wind turbine issue in the town of Forest has a more difficult and confusing set of science and data. This difficulty is used by some to mislead and misdirect. I will do my best to show some science and data to illustrate why there are health issues near large wind turbines. We had a fellow show up at a meeting with what he described as a, quote, decibel meter. It was not. The device is actually referred to by the makers as a, quote, sound level meter. The device actually measures the acoustic pressure pulse and then applies an algorithm and then displays dBA as the result. dBA was developed as a way to approximate the human ear response. The human ear works from frequencies from around 30 cycles a second up to about 12,000 cycles a second, but not as well as frequencies decrease below 1,000 cycles per second. There are differences with each person tested. Acoustic pressure pulses at 20 cycles per second are referred to as infrasound. These pulses cannot be heard, but can be felt or sensed by most people because we're made up of water. The pulses cause a mixed set of responses with different people. Some of the common responses are sleep problem, nausea, headaches, dizziness, among others. I sent a chart to everyone, some interesting points. dBA and dB, the real thing, are the same at 1,000 cycles a second. Below 1,000 cycles per second, the human ear ability to hear decreases steadily as the frequency decreases. Note that infrasound pulses have a doubling of distance where audible sound decreases
John?
with every...
John?
Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you. Rachel McCardle.
My name is Rachel McCardle, and I live in Hudson, Wisconsin on 420 Orange Street. I stand before this board today to open up communication. There are a lot of people that have seen on agenda number 5, the Public Health Officer Duty Ordinance. And we're here today to tell you that we want to be involved and we want to be a part of the conversation. We've seen such ordinances pop up all over the state. They're really oddly similar. They have popped up in multiple counties, and it makes us wonder, are these counties acting for what's best on them, or are they getting some kind of outside push? And I just want to be here as a community member to make sure that we are acting for what's best for our community. And there are a lot of people that are here today, and there's a lot of people that also couldn't make it today that do really care. And I just want to make sure that we are open to communication with one another and that we are acting for what's best for our community. I'm not sure, I know that they're looking to create a subcommittee on this. I also do know back in May 19th, it was stated that an ordinance was in final draft and ready if needed. So I'm not sure if that's the same ordinance or a new ordinance is coming about. But we would love to be a part of this process. We want to see what is in this. We want to know what is going to be granted to this public health officer, and we want to make sure that our voices are heard. So really, I'm just here today to learn what's happening and to be a part of the process and to just encourage all of us to be respectful and open to each other and our thoughts and ideas. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Sarah Bachland, did I pronounce that last name right? Yes. Okay.
Hi. My name is Sarah Bachland. I live in St. Croix County. I'm sorry, I don't usually public speak, so this is strange for me. As Rachel said, we're just worried about our freedoms and our rights as citizens. I've heard lots of stories about our freedoms being taken away, and I know you look at us non-maskers and are confused by us and wondering why we would not participate in the masking and everything, and we're generally concerned about our freedoms. Each of us do it for our own specific convictions, and I just like Rachel said, I'd like to hear what this ordinance has to say, what the health officials' duties are, and have it be worded very well and clearly in the ordinance for us to understand and just be a part of the process, like Rachel said. So I just stand in opposition and hope you hear our voices. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. I will remind folks, we've got more than our limit of numbers of folks that are in here. Out of respect, we're going to have to try to keep a 6-foot distance one way or another, folks, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to ask that some of you folks are going to have to go back across the hall. Obviously, we're way over our limit of 10 people in this room right now. Thank you, I appreciate that. And next will be Jennifer Flanders. Jennifer?
Hi, thank you. I'm going to try to make this fast, and so I'm going to speak fast. So I'm Jennifer Flanders. I reside out in the boondocks of St. Croix County. My address being a Wilson address, but St. Croix County. So in case I had hoped to bring some copies for you, because I think there's some pertinent information that we may be forgetting. And my printer doesn't like me. So If you can see where I've highlighted some areas, this looks horrible. These are the statistics from the past month well, for more than the past month, but especially the past month in Wisconsin, and specifically St. Croix County, which you can see up here. Okay, so the last spike was July 29th, and that was 12 cases that day that were reported in St. Croix County. And as of Monday of this week, which was the last reporting day so far, was eight. 0 deaths as of Monday, and yes, there were 2 on August 14th. This is the number of deaths. This is the kind of graphs that they put on the Wisconsin website. When you look at that, that looks horrifying, okay? But this is a half. I'm not sure who dies a half, but there's a half, there's 1, there's 2. So this horrible looking graph is 2 people. And before anyone gets upset at me and thinks I'm being disrespectful, I am not. My grandfather's dying. I just lost my grandma. I've lost 2 of my in-laws in the last 2 years, plus multiple friends. So this is horrible. I mean, nobody likes it. Nobody is happy about it. We're not happy, though, about being treated like prisoners in our own homes, which is really what's going on in our country right now. Just to take that information and put it in a little bit more perspective, that means in St. Croix County we're at 0.008
Jennifer,
7
I'm sorry.
thousandths of a
I'm sorry if I
percent.
cut you off.
So,
All right, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
You bet, thank you. Jessica Klatt.
Hi, guys. Thank you for letting us meet with you here tonight. I participated in the Pierce County ordinance meetings, and the last one, I was in a park building with about 300 other people sweating while the board met in a different building. So thank you for letting us be here, even if we have to space. There are so many things I want to say. I'm going to echo what Rachel said. I really want to learn what this ordinance is going to detail for us and our families. The last 6 months has been hard. I don't think anybody is spared from that. And as difficult as it is seeing people, be afraid of a virus that, as our last speaker showed us, is not nearly what it's being blown up to be. What's even scarier is the overreach of our government. And I think, what you see here tonight are people that are showing up because we're scared of where this could lead for our own children. I watched my son miss his graduation this year. My grandfather is 92. He has dementia. He lives in a care facility. And I haven't hugged him since early March. That is government overreach that did all of that. So I want to be involved. I want the community to be involved in this ordinance, and I'm going to keep showing up, and I appreciate that you're letting us. So I just want to make sure you guys know that, and I definitely stand in opposition to any further government overreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Shelley Vance.
Good evening, Shelley Vance. I live on 6th Street, downtown Hudson. Just like Jessica and Rachel and the other speakers said, we're here to hopefully voice our opinion and help you guys understand where we're coming from, and just hope that you board members can listen to us and understand why we're standing up for our constitutional rights and our freedom. So, yeah, agenda number 5, I oppose, and I would just love to get some more information and maybe a show of hands who is here opposing agenda number 5 and who is here to just get some more information. And thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Lynn, I'm going to butcher this one, Lynn, I'm sorry. Betzold? In the other room? Okay, we'll wait just a second. There she is.
Hi, everyone. Lynn Betzold. I live in Roberts, 159th Street. I would like to be a proactive citizen in bringing forth a concern about the 5G technology. It is very new. It's coming out very fast, and I have a concern about the electromagnetic frequencies that are very different from anything we've experienced before. We may have noticed towers that have been put up that, very quickly. And this new 5G is very exciting. It does empower artificial intelligence, self-powered cars, even military capabilities. One thing I would like to have a personal, I have someone very close to me who has experienced one of those military type capabilities that honestly sounds like it's science fiction. But on 3 different occasions, they personally experienced what's called the voice of God technology, where it sounds like you have sounds in your head that are inside your head, like vibrating, super, like can be very loud. One occasion, she said she had a very low tone. The second time is the creepiest. It was the voice of her husband who was not home and saying her name, woke her up. The third one was just recently, last Sunday. She heard a higher pitch, almost like a cat or a child, very quick. That sounds very crazy, I know, but it has convinced me that some of this technology is very real, and I think we need to get ahead on this and keep an eye out on our children as they return to school, and they have the 5Gs in their buildings. If they get symptoms that maybe appear to be COVID, shortness of breath, depression, headaches, that may be confused with COVID, and if we could open our minds to consider, is it technology? I would like to call that experts come next month. I hope to be on the agenda who have more experience than me. If you have any electromagnetic frequency health issues yourself, and if there be anybody willing to monitor with near the towers and be able to report. Thank you.
Whoops, I'm sorry. Claire Johnson?
Hello, my name is Claire Johnson, and I live on 604 County Road in Hudson, Wisconsin. And I just want to come and voice overreach and just kind of the rabbit hole this can go down to, because my real concern is the mandated vaccine, and I'm not for that, for my children and for my husband and for me. And I can quickly see, the government overreach and mandating things like masks, the health officers and things like that. And just like as she was talking about the 5G, there's lots of things that people I feel like there needs to be a lot more research done and testing and scientific, backing on how these things are affecting us and little ones. So I'm opposed of any government overreach. And, we're in America and we have God-given rights. And I really just would like to see Americans stand up and stand for those things. So thank you.
And thank you. Is there anyone else in this room or behind us that wishes to speak? Okay. He's gonna have to fill out. You're gonna have to fill one of these out too.
This is it.
But you go ahead. This is the Matt. All right, go ahead, Matt. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
This is Matt Backlund.
Matt Bachland, 573 Omaha Road.
Hudson, Wisconsin. First and foremost, I was at the Pierce County thing, and I love politics. I love community events. I've been to your guys' things just for fun for Boy Scouts before. I think it's fantastic, community involvement. I will say that I have a restored, renewed trust in the American people. The fact that we had 300 some people sitting at state fairgrounds, separate from the people who are making decisions, and then for those people to say, it doesn't matter what we have to say, we make it behind closed doors decision. But I'm glad that we stood up, we had our voice, it's great. Win, lose, or draw, we still win because we know that we're standing up for our country, and there's actually still winners in this country ready to fight what they stand up for, you know. But here, I'm going to read this quick because somebody told me to. It says, Dr. Richard Bartlett has founded treatment working for his patients in Texas. Okay, this used to be this used because it does not increase chances of secondary pneumonia. Safe for 21-pound preemies to elderly. Also zinc and, what's that word? Okay, perfect. Antibiotic for pneumonia and walking pneumonia. Why are we not pushing docs to have these treatments instead of officers? That's right. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for your time.
Albuterol, it's albuterol, what used to be albuterol as a nebulizer.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay.
What? Yep, we're not done yet. Okay. You want to do one of them now, or what? Okay. Stacy Cuppa? Or Cup? Cupka? I'm sorry, Stacy.
No, you got it. Good job. Yes, my name is Stacy Kupka. I live at 961 Daly Road here in Hudson. And first of all, I just want to thank you guys for your service. I know I've served on boards before, and I know it can be really difficult, and I can't even imagine what it's like right now. So first of all, I just want to say thank you. I'm here, my husband is here with me today, just because we are concerned. I want to mirror a lot of what you've already heard today, but just with St. Croix County and Pierce County, and how some of the things played out, and how some of the other things have been playing out in other counties around us, there is some concern, and we're just wanting to make sure that there's transparency, there's openness. We would love to learn more about where you guys are at, what your thought processes are at, and as far as like what direction you're kind of heading. I think there's just some concern because there hasn't been a lot of information out, where there's just a lot of people kind of speculating, and we're having to go off of what's happening in other counties. So I guess I'm here tonight just wanting to learn and gather more information, and just express some concerns that we would have, and maybe some overreach that we've been seeing in other counties and in other states throughout our country. We would want to stand up against some of those overreaching things that are happening. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you for just taking the time to hear our voices and our concerns. We appreciate that. So.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, well, we've got a couple of folks that are calling in as well. Ken, I don't know which one you want to take first.
I'll announce them here for you, Mr. Chair. So we are going to call John Gostovich. So John, if you're watching, you're getting a phone call.
Hello, this is John Gostovich.
Hi, John. You are live with the Health and Human Services Board. You had requested a phone call for public comment. You have 2 minutes to make your comment.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. I'm pretty quick here. My name is John Gostovich. I live at 870 Strawberry Drive in the town of Hudson. I'm recently retired from a long career in risk management, risk mitigation with the Minnesota Department of Health and the Minnesota Department of Transportation. My background is economics, public policy, and statistics. My comments are based on my professional experience, my understanding of best practices, and the confusing and unfocused approach to community protection that has been followed so far. We're in the middle of a public health emergency that is sickening or killing our friends, neighbors, and all who may venture into our community. Although it's clear that public health measures can dramatically reduce the ongoing devastation caused by the COVID virus, St. Croix County at this point has not taken some well understood steps to protect the health and welfare of its residents and visitors. Again, this is not about government overreach. This is about simply keeping us healthy and safe. Here's what you don't need to do. You don't need to wait and see what happens either at the governor's office, the legislature, the courts, or other institutions. Every day, more folks are becoming ill. The numbers bounce up and down, but the trajectory is clearly up. More people are hospitalized, more folks will die. Right now, there's no clear and ambiguous guidance on masking or distancing. There's no enforcement protocol or practice. There's no requirement to require names for future contact tracing. There's no effective public communication. Every outdoor church event, concert, sports activity is met with questions and confusions. It's all ad hoc. We need clear rules for everybody in our community. I know this sounds dramatic, but until there
That's
is
your buzzer,
enforcement-
John?
Well, I'll finish up. You have copies of my remarks. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. All right, Celeste Cobero, we're calling you. Hopefully I don't get a wrong number.
Hi, this is Celeste.
Hi Celeste, you are live with the Health and Human Services Board. You had requested a phone call for public comment. You will have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I have submitted written comments. They're quite extensive, and I hope that please read them and please enter them into the public record. I'm sorry, I have to mute the other volume right now. Okay, great. Otherwise, I was getting feedback. Sorry. My concern is that I'm not there today because of the COVID-19 exposure and spread risk to me that endanger my health and my very life because of all the people in that room who are not wearing masks. And I have heard people talk about government overreach. I happen to be an attorney. I've been a practicing attorney for 39 years. And it's clear that liberty under the U.S. Constitution does not include a right of individuals to make decisions about their own health that can also endanger other people. Under the 10th Amendment and 200 years of Supreme Court of the United States decisions, it is clear law that state and local governments may require public health protections during a pandemic, such as our current COVID-19 situation. The American Bar Association has issued statements to this effect. Many deans of law schools have clarified this and written recent essays and published articles about it. And the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in a number of recent cases where the conservative Chief Justice Roberts has written the majority opinion that it is entirely constitutional and lawful to enact public health protections to protect all of us against this very serious threat of the COVID-19 virus. The county needs to act now. Not enough people are wearing masks. If you don't want to have the state have to shut down again by the end of November, we need to have 95% of people wearing masks all the time. That's according to projections for the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington. Act now. Approve item 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste.
Okay. Lisa Buckle? She's coming. She's coming.
Hi, my name is Lisa Buckle, and I live in Hudson at 1286 Cratley Lane. I'd like to just state that I do have some current concerns about the role of the public health officer. Like Rachel was saying, we would just like to be assured that there will be open communication regarding her role. What are all of her roles? What is the scope? What authority does she have? Will HIPAA laws be clearly upheld, along with private citizens' rights? Also, how many people are doing contact tracing? I would like to see it removed, and I'd like to see more focus on the real needs of the community right now. I'm concerned about government overreach. I'm hoping for transparency from this board. And I'm a healthy American, and so looks like most of you here. We should not be scared of one another, and I'm concerned about what it conveys to our children and our community when we continue to portray that we are afraid of one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And the next one is Michelle. And I can't really read your last name, Michelle, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for letting us speak. We really appreciate it. And as Rachel said, we really just want to be part of the process. Considering what recently happened in Pierce County, hopefully you can understand our concern. It appears to be a slippery slope. According to the CDC, the death rate in the U.S. peaked in April. Since that time, the rate has been plummeting. Both COVID and pneumonia peaked in April. To date, there have been more pneumonia deaths this year than COVID deaths. 85% of jurisdictions in the U.S. report a steep decline in the virus. This is despite administering 70 million tests, which is more than all of Europe combined. Nationwide, cases have declined by 6%, and the positivity rate is at 6.5%, which is a 71% reduction from April and a 15% reduction from July. Hospitalizations have halved since April. The death rate is close to zero. I can tell you we are being inundated with fighting this at the city, county, and state level. Due to actions in other counties across our state, we are extremely wary of considerations such as this appearing on the agenda. In other counties, these agendas have been acted on in exact opposition to the will of the majority of the people. I would ask St. Croix County to not proceed with anything that could be perceived to be infringing on our constitutional rights. Already people are being discriminated against due to the mask mandate. The mask exemption supposedly provided by the governor for certain individuals is not honored everywhere. People in our county have been harassed and refused service. We are weary, we are mistrustful, we have listened and complied for months now. We are asking you to please listen to us. At some point, we implore our city, county, and state governments to remember that we live in the greatest and the most free country in the world. God bless America.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there anyone else in this room or in the overflow room wishing to speak to the board and with public comment? You want to go over and double check? Go over and double check.
My name is Jeremiah Maxwell. I live on the corner of 5th and River. Appreciate you guys letting us be part of this opportunity. I'm going to read off some things you're more likely to die of than COVID. Heart disease, 1 in 7. Chronic respiratory disease, 1 in 28. Infectious self-harm, 1 in 95. Actually falling, believe it or not, 1 in 27. I'm going to back up. Motor vehicle crashes, 1 in 114. You are more likely to die by getting in your car every day. Do we need to call you guys and get permission, or can we assess our own risk? That's my freedom. My freedom ends where your freedom begins, and vice versa. Okay? Let's go on. Pedestrian incident, 1 in 647. Motorcycle rider incident, 1 in 985. I haven't even got to the COVID part yet, because that's way down on the bottom here. Are we worried about any of these numbers? Nope. You know, I was just going to wrap it up and say this. You're more likely to see the Minnesota Vikings win a Super Bowl before you would ever die or be harmed by COVID. Thank you.
Was there anybody else over there? Okay. All right. Not seeing anybody else wishing to speak, we're going to move on to our business items, and I thank everyone who took the time to be with us tonight. Thank you. We'll go into business item number 1 is our public health update. Deb, I see you're here. Hey, Kelly is here.
I'm here. Kelly's giving the update, not me. I'm just here. Oh, Deb, you could do a great job giving this update.
You two ladies look like 2 bookends up there on the screen. You know that? Go
Okay,
ahead.
well, do we have a presentation that's going to be shared? I'll wait for that to get on the screen. And as that's getting loaded, I just really honestly, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank everybody who came out to voice their concerns tonight. It takes a lot of courage to get in front of an audience and talk about the things you believe in. So I appreciate every comment, and know that it's not on deaf ears. Your comments don't fall on deaf ears. This is a tremendous struggle and response that we have been in since March. And it continues for us in our small health department. I have a couple of thank yous to the board. I want to let you know how much our small public health department really values the support you gave us in July. It is much appreciated. And we can't thank you enough for all the support, because it hasn't been an easy road. We like to give you an update at these monthly meetings so you understand kind of where we are at locally, and we'll talk a little bit about the state as well as the national level. I am so excited to introduce to you all Elizabeth, we call her Ellie. Elizabeth, I know you're on. She is a limited term epidemiologist that we have hired on. Elle, did you start in June or July? And I put her on the spot.
It's all right. I started in July.
In July. So she's here with us. I don't know how we really made it through those first few months of this response without her. This gal can pull data from our WED system. You hear us talk a lot about the Wisconsin Electronic Disease Surveillance System. She's a whiz. She's amazing. So this is her work, and I do not want to take credit for her work. So I'm going to let her give this presentation for you tonight. And we can try to answer questions as they come. So take it away, Ellie.
Thanks, Kelly. Just to give you a little background on myself, I am a master and trained epidemiologist from Johns Hopkins. I did grow up in New Richmond, so I'm very familiar with the community, and I'm really excited to be back in the community. So all familiar faces or unfamiliar, thanks for being here tonight. So if we go ahead onto the first slide, so these are changes that have happened since July. If you compare our changed just from July in the last month. Our total case number, now these are confirmed cases. These are people who have been confirmed by a serological lab test. And that is how we receive that data from the laboratory and the hospitals themselves. We have had 7 deaths. That is a total, that is not a change. That is our current total. Moving forward, Kelly will speak on our staff and our schools and the masking recommendations. I'm here because mostly for the numbers and to present the data for you guys. With our state has increased by 69.8% just in the last month. The Wisconsin deaths are now over 1,000. And the federal level, the cases have increased by 53%. And the deaths are quite large in total right now. And for nearly 3 weeks, the US has actually averaged over 1,000 deaths a day. So moving forward and on to the next slide, just to give you kind of a snapshot of where Wisconsin and St. Croix County lies with COVID activity right now. As you can see, the corner of this slide says updated 12/2020. This slide is only because it includes the past 2 weeks of data. It doesn't update that often. But what we're looking at across the bottom for St. Croix County is our burden. So what a burden means is basically how many cases do we have in the past 2 weeks per 100,000 residents. And that number is universally used across the federal level and other states to measure activity. We're currently at 93. What you see up there is 102. That's because just today, new data came out, but unfortunately the slides were already made in preparation for this meeting. So, but what that doesn't change is that doesn't change our activity level. We are still considered moderately high in terms of our burden, and that's that number per 100,000 residents. Our trajectory hasn't changed. That's why you see that flat arrow there. Neither are we significantly, which is a significant change, meaning there is no other possibility that we could 95% confident that there is no change going on significantly in comparison to a decrease or an increase in case numbers right now. Okay. And this is just for the past 2 weeks. That you say case numbers are just in the last 2 weeks we're looking at compared to the prior 2 weeks. Okay. We'll go to the next slide. This is a little snapshot, again, to give you kind of an idea of where St. Croix County sits in the state and as well as in the US. We talked about some of these numbers of confirmed cases, and these are kind of those percentage changes. Just so you can see where those numbers kind of derive from. You can kind of see the swell in cases in St. Croix County between June and July. And then as we move in now to August, we have had an increase, about a 31% increase, but not as significant as compared to the previous month's increase. Okay, we can move on. All right, what you're looking at here, and actually if it's possible, if the controller of the presentation, if we could go to a full screen mode. Yeah, there we go. We can see the dates on the bottom. What I'm missing from my view being part of, there we are, being part of the electronic world here is kind of what those bars and those colors mean. So each bar you will see right there is the number of people tested in St. Croix County. Now these tests are the true lab tests that we collect from the hospital. And then the blue is the daily confirmed test. So those tests that come and do say, yes, definitively from the lab or the hospital, you are positive for COVID. What you're looking on in that yellow line is called a 7-day moving average. So those are the percent of positive tests. So of all the people tested in St. Croix County, what percentage are actually positive? You can see that line somewhat is shifting and you'll see a drop off at the end. However, knowing that we're taking a 7-day moving average to take that measure, that yellow line, it's actually projecting into the future because it's going to take the 2 days prior and the 2 days behind to give us into a I'm sorry. Paul, Dr. McGinnis just popped in quick.
I believe on your last slide on the case count, the number in July 15th was 317, not 417.
You know that, so I am taking my counts depending on if you're taking from them from the state or from our counts, I'm counting them as we count each individual positive. So that is potentially a big difference right there. I will double check that number for sure, and I'll ask Kelly on the best way to distribute the number.
Sure,
Okay?
thank you.
Thanks for that, Paul, or Dr. McGinnis. Sorry, there's Paul on there. Okay. All right. So what we're looking at is the big reason people are interested in percent positive tests is because you would like to remain at 5% or lower for at least 14 days. That's kind of what the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the CDC here in the United States have determined is the recommended number in percent positive for testing. Unfortunately, if we go to the next slide, this is kind of our weekly averages, and you can see that not since the end of June have we been able to maintain under 5% positivity. So these are averages. So this is an average of the week's data, just so it isn't such a gradient spike. But we are leveling off, but we're still remaining high, unfortunately, currently. Okay. Keep going. This is outbreaks. So an outbreak, as you can see the bottom note there, the state asks that we consider an outbreak if there is one positive case in a health facility. So you can see that health facility would be termed as a long-term care. So that's in a skilled nurse facility, an assisted living facility, or like a group home. And then a non-health facility obviously would be a restaurant, bar, workplace, or event. So all of those listed are actually places where we have currently had outbreaks. And confirmed outbreaks reported to the state. And so we currently have 4 active health facility outbreaks going on and 7 non-health facilities that are currently active. And active meaning that we are waiting for everyone identified in that outbreak to finish their disease cycle. So for them to finish that period where they are no longer infectious and do not have the potential to infect another. Or if you have been labeled as a contact where you are not developing that infection, okay? And these are just some numbers, so it's kind of a knowledge that, so of our health facilities, 20 positive cases have resulted, and in our non-health facilities, 68 positive cases have resulted. 2 deaths have resulted from our health facility outbreaks, and then these are the number of investigations. So whether or not that's at a facility, them giving us a list of their employees who were in contact, or at a non-health facility, whoever was in contact with that positive case, then the investigation would move forward to alert them that they did have contact with that positive case, and we would move forward with the public health recommendations for that contact, okay? We can go ahead and keep going. All right, this is data through Monday. What we're just looking at here is the total and confirmed probable cases by age. So now this data is coming from our WED system. So confirmed people they are tested positive, tested with a lab test. Probable means that they have a link, so a knowledge of they were in the same household as a positive case, they shook hands, they hugged, some reason for us to know that they had definite contact, epidemiological contact with a positive case, as well as they have symptoms. So and then for some reason or not, they were not able to be tested. So we consider them probable, which means we treat them as they were a case, as if they were infectious, because it is clinically significant what has gone on. And so they are included in this. And we can see that in the last 2 weeks, it's kind of shifted the total. So these are every case on the top graph. In the bottom graph, you see just in the last 2 weeks where we're deriving our case numbers from and which age groups. Okay. All right. This is just of overall cases we've had. This is just the reported race of those probable and confirmed cases. Okay. And this is the gender distribution of the probable and confirmed cases. Males having a little bit of a higher percentage in cases. And this is also reflected in Wisconsin data as well as in national data. So, all right. That is the end of my presentation. So I want to thank you guys all for your time. And if there are any questions, I am sure that we can find a way for you to reach out to me or to the public health department in general, and we can hope to get those answered. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ellie.
And Paulette, great job, and thank you, and welcome to St. Croix County. Kelly, a couple of questions for you. For folks that may not be know where we're at on the public website, they can go right to the our first page, click on COVID at the top. Gives us a whole list of stuff that's going on. Couple things that folks might be interested in are the numbers on the dashboard that you guys update, I think, at 2 o'clock every day. That may be helpful to folks. A little bit beyond that, we've got a box in there for if folks are wondering where they can get a COVID test, both in St. Croix and Pierce County. That's also on there as well. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Probably the quickest, easiest way is to Google St. Croix County. Pick the St. Croix County website, and I believe the red dot still exists. I was on there 2 days ago to go to the general information related to COVID. Adam Kostanek has done a nice job helping us out with better organization of some of the resources that we have out there for people. And he's been a real help in navigating a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from citizens related to data and just general questions. So we continue to strive to make that better and get information to people.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Kelly, thank you, and please pass on our grateful thanks to you and our entire public health staff. You guys are you're doing one hell of a job, and thank you.
We really appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2. Faye, we're going to talk about our financials.
Item number 5, since most of the public is here for that item. Taking the items out of order. Just a suggestion, still up to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, everybody okay with that? We'll jump down and we'll take up item number 5 and come back to the financials as a recommendation from our administrator. Bob, you want to start us off with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the item came up as a way to address some of the communication concerns that some of you have raised tonight in the public comment, and for a subcommittee work group to, I guess the question is, would HHS want to develop a subgroup to look at communication in particular around COVID and how we could, I won't put words into your mouth, Mr. Chair, or Supervisor Leaf, who may have comments on this, but the idea was to improve communication around COVID-19 and to look at public health officer duties, which are already something that's outlined in statute, but just to recognize what those are and clarify that issue and a little bit more in terms of communication with the public and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to address that too. That is why I asked for this to be on the agenda. I am hearing the public comment, and I understand how you feel in terms of communication, and there's a lot of fear, a lot of just unclear what's going on, especially where we live in this part of the state. We sort of are in this void of leadership in some ways because we don't get Wisconsin TV in this market anyway. And we can always do better about what's happening with the virus and what our public health office is doing. They're a very small office, and we need to do everything we can to help them communicate the guidelines in order for us to keep moving and fight this pandemic. It's not meant to, the last thing that any of us want to do is to have a shutdown again, right? We want to keep things open and running. But for us to do that, we really need to think about how we lean into the science and the data and take what public health is, the guidelines that they're recommending, and communicate that as best we can to the public in order to get compliance. Voluntary compliance is always the goal. Kelly will tell you that, absolutely tell you that with public health is no one wants to be running around giving tickets for things, but it's about helping educate and encouraging compliance. It's easier to comply if you understand the why, right? If you're understanding the reasons that guidelines are created. So I'm a communications person, so I always feel like you communicate again, you say it again. You say your messages over and over and over again in a consistent way. And people are talking about being transparent. That's what this subcommittee really is about. It's about being openly communicating what's happening in our county, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And it happens because, in the absence of, communication, there's a void. So there's speculation. A lot of people, you mentioned that in the public comment, people speculate, people jump to conclusions, people read stuff on Facebook, and it starts to snowball. So we need to all be working together as a community, respecting each other, talking to each other, and trying to beat this so that we can all keep moving forward, keeping our schools open, keeping businesses open, and protecting those that are very vulnerable to this disease. And I'm one of them. I'm a high-risk person. And so is my family. So we all need to look out for each other, and that's the point of this subcommittee. Sorry, I rambled.
And thank you, Kathy. Board members, Kathy and I and Bob and Kelly met about a week ago Friday, and spent an hour going over a number of things. And as we were getting towards the end of that, I had made the comment, perhaps it's time that we form a subcommittee and work on a few things, and that's better getting current information out to the general public. That's very straightforward, easy to read, so there's no questions asked. And at the same time, we need to get the word out to our businesses as well. The public health is there to help you, not to harm you. They want to make sure that our employers, all employees, everyone that walks in and out of their doors are staying safe and healthy. And I think the four of us kind of agreed that perhaps we should form a subcommittee and doing some things like that. I had a comment or a couple of conversations with Adam and wondering what his thoughts were on that one. And so, Adam, I'm going to turn a little bit over to you. And what are your thoughts?
All right. I'm going to take this off for a second. So I've been talking with Chair Osnes and HHS and Public Health about this, but first, before I get into this, the chair had asked me to kind of deliver a similar speech to what I did last night about where we've been with the public information officer position and where we see that going. So I'm going to start with that speech first, if that's all right with you. I've shifted it a little bit, so sorry for people who have listened to it yesterday. It's going to be a bit of a repeat. So since I started this position 2.5 months ago, I've been developing relationships with our departments and employees to learn what they need to better serve the residents of this county. I've also been reviewing the analytics of how our visitors have been interacting with the county online. Together, this information will help us lay the foundation for our communication strategy moving forward, with the goal of creating a culture of information sharing between departments and unified messaging to our residents and visitors. We're still developing the strategy, but so far I've partnered with, advised, or produced communications for public health, the healthcare campus, ADRC, behavioral health, the sheriff's office, community development, human resources, and on behalf of my own office in the administration department. My position is here to help all county departments with their communication needs. I've helped public health in updating their health advisory. addressing frequently asked questions, and sharing important data about the impact of COVID-19 in our county. Moving forward, I will be devoting more of my time to public health needs. We will be making more changes to our public website and how we share information, making the information we all need easier to find, easier to understand, and ultimately more accessible. We will be adding information about school reopenings, sharing insight from our local healthcare professionals, tips on how to stay healthy both physically and emotionally, and continue to address questions and concerns from the residents of our county. The way that I see this, whether it's a subcommittee, whether it's a working group, anytime that we can get information from the public, whether it's from the public comment, or whether it's from emails to the supervisors, to public health, to myself, we gather all of that data and we use that to determine how to address our communication needs. Prime example of that is any information that we get off of social media or emails. We look at that to determine where the trends are, what the concerns are within the community, and we develop we have a frequently asked questions, an FAQ section on our website that we've been developing, and we will continue to add to that. Where we see a stronger need in communications, where there's more of a concern or confusion around a particular topic, we will definitely work together to create more clear and concise information around that, whether it's through the local media to make sure that it's getting out to people, or it's on our public website, or sharing through social media, or preferably all of the above. So what I would really like to see from this group is, again, more transparency and sharing of ideas. The more information I know about what's impacting or what is concerning our residents, the better I can help communicate about those needs.
Any board members have questions, comments? We're open to comments right now from anybody. Kara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have to say I'm so happy that Adam is here, because I think communication is so critical to what we are trying to do relating to this topic, or really any of the topics that the county undertakes, any of the projects or tasks that we do. I know that a lot of folks that spoke tonight shared what I think I heard concerns about the ordinance and potentially a process regarding an ordinance. And I think it would behoove us, or I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you have thoughts about, in the agenda item, it does mention the public health officer duty ordinance. So I'm assuming that the ordinance will also be part of the conversation of the subcommittee, or I think it might be beneficial for us to share where that, I don't know if Scott has anything to say about that, or where that ordinance is, or the current state of that, so we can start by communicating that to the folks that are here and those that are listening.
Point of information. Scott, under Chapter 42, Human Health Hazards, when we're looking at the definition under 42.03 sub D of human health hazards, is this what we're looking at when we're looking at duties per se in this pandemic as related to our county health officer?
I don't have that particular ordinance at my hand, but what we're looking at is creating an enforcement mechanism if it becomes necessary in the discharge of the public health officer's duties. So under the statute, the public health officer with relative to communicable diseases has very broad authority to do whatever's reasonable and necessary to stop and combat a communicable disease. And there was a comment this evening that, well, all of these ordinances seem to look the same. Well, there's a reason for that, because a county can only do what the legislature allows a county to do. And the legislature allows and created the position of public health officer for this very reason, is to suppress to take actions reasonable and necessary, and that's actual language from the statute, take actions that are reasonable and necessary to suppress communicable diseases. So when we talk about an ordinance, we're talking about one of the duties of the public health officer is to take all reasonable and necessary measures. And that can come in many different forms. It can come in very specific orders towards individuals. And there's already an enforcement mechanism for that. But if it becomes necessary for the public health officer to issue a county-wide order, there's no mechanism that the county has to enforce that order unless there's a local ordinance that's allowed under Wisconsin statute. So I don't know that I've answered your question, but I've kind of laid out what an ordinance would do. We do have a draft of an ordinance that has been substantially complete for a few months. There was a work group from the Wisconsin Counties Association, which was led by their chief legal counsel and corporation counsels and public health officers throughout the state, and they've come up with a work product here, which acts as a guide for counties in considering what ordinances could look like and what certain measures could look like for a county, but it's really up to the county to draft the ordinance. So we are in the process of reviewing that work product and making any necessary changes to the ordinance, and so that can certainly be a component of this work group.
That, I think, and then the public input and public education around what that ordinance means and what the real impacts are, so that people understand. I think folks in public comment felt like they didn't really know the process in other counties, or maybe felt like it was behind closed doors. This is meant to be open and transparent, educate, and really the reason and Kelly or Dr. McGinnis maybe can speak to it, but when I mention voluntary compliance, every time I hear Kelly speak, she talks about that with public health. This just, if I understand this correctly, this gives us a tool in case the pandemic turns very, very bad, if we need to take an action quickly.
Any other comments? Dr. McGinnis, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. I do think that there is some potential value to this, both in if things do take a turn for the worse and people of our county aren't really putting the best interests of everyone forefront, and are there ways that then we can encourage them to do that? And sometimes you have to encourage them to drive the speed limit by having a speed limit and not drive 90 miles an hour on our roads. And so I think that there is some potential value for this, but I think it's also important as part of that transparency to talk about when something might be enacted, but also importantly, when something would be unenacted. So when do we allow places to open? When do we allow larger groups? Those kinds of things, and being clear on what types of metrics and what types of things are being monitored in the process of making those decisions. And I think that's an important part of the puzzle as well.
Okay, I'm going to go around the table. Deb, your thoughts?
Well, I agree. I mean, I think there's certainly some merit to have a group that looks at this more closely and looks at all the aspects of it, finds a way maybe to get more public input. Yeah, I think it's certainly worth doing. I mean, we don't know what the future is going to bring in terms of this pandemic and, you know, anything else in the future. And I think it's a good, you know, I think that we should certainly look at it. The other thing is, you know, people are afraid about like, who is the health officer? Well, a health officer isn't just someone off the street. They're, you know, you really have to have a lot of background, a lot of and credentials and experience to, you know, to be the health officer. So it's not just someone making decisions. It's someone who certainly is qualified to make decisions related to health of the public and individuals.
Are you speaking from experience?
Yeah, I think we're both pretty qualified, Kelly.
I think you are.
Tasha, what are your thoughts?
I don't really have any additional comments to add from what was already said. I agree. I think we have a lot more work to do around communication and definitely giving clear guidelines for how we can combat this and get back to normalcy. I think that's what we all want, but we're not there yet. And if we don't, convey the right messages and do this education in a way that I guess is clear and concise and people feel involved, I'm afraid we're just going to stay on this road for much longer than any of us want to be. So I agree. At the very least, a work group needs to be put in place and soon.
Okay, Greg, I'm going right around the table. What are your thoughts?
I echo everything everybody said so far. I was confused even about what was on the agenda tonight because there was no information. I mean, there is no information out there that's being put out there in a concise manner. Yeah, I knew about an old ordinance that we've been looked at, but was that what this was about? I had no clue. I had to call people. So even I'm confused sometimes. So I'd like to be involved on the subcommittee myself. So, and help point the way in the future.
Okay, Paulette?
The more information, the better. I think we're lucky to have a communication gentleman, and it's all good.
So I think one of the first things we've heard all the way around the table is better communication. Is that fair enough? One of them anyhow, that we should be working on?
One of them.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, given the comments that were presented, okay, I'm eating a cotton mask. Given the comments that were presented by the public this evening, and I know those comments are not alone to persons of only Hudson. They are resounded throughout all the counties in western Wisconsin. And in case, just so that the public knows and those listening, I am District 13 Supervisor Scotty Ard. I also work with the Salvation Army, and I cover all of the counties in western Wisconsin. I am dealing with persons with COVID every day. So, of course, limiting exposure, making sure that the public is safe is my top priority. Just as most of the people you're seeing on the screen, they're front line. They're out there testing and tracing and tracking. They're looking out for you and for me and for everyone in the county. The bottom line is that within this pandemic, no one has done an outstanding job of delivering information and delivering it correctly. Turn off the TV and the internet and stop reading these fictitious posts that have no basis in fact. If you want to know what's happening in St. Croix County, go to the St. Croix County website, homepage, hit the red button. If you do it after 2 p.m., then you get the updated numbers coming directly from our staff, from our people. That will keep you boots on the ground for what's actually happening in the county. As far as putting this committee together, now that we have an information officer for St. Croix County, it is a great idea. Bringing in a consensus of ideas from board members, from HHS, from persons who are frontline, from the community. How can we better communicate to you so that you understand the numbers, so that you understand what's coming out of Madison as state orders, so that you understand that from village to township to municipality to county government to state government to federal orders, so that you understand who has authority and who doesn't. that you understand how a public health officer gets their powers through state statute. These are things the public needs to know. And if you don't know the statutory number to look it up, call me, email me, and I'll be happy to give you all the statutory areas to find this information out for yourself so that you are informed, so that when you are speaking on these issues, you are speaking as a knowledgeable individual and that you do know your rights within the state. I think forming this subcommittee would be very helpful to the persons of St. Croix County.
Sorry. Which direction does this board want to go? Do we want to go forward with creating a subcommittee right now? And to look at the, to review and introduce new things for communication strategies?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we form a subcommittee work group to address communications needs related to COVID-19, including the possibility of the public health duties, officer duties ordinance.
Greg, you seconded that?
Yes.
Okay, is there any other addition or comments, questions? Kara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to provide clarity again for the audience, the subcommittee will form to discuss the public health communication strategy and also could include the conversation around the public health ordinance. Is that correct? Based on, and then following that subcommittee conversation, any potential ordinance would come back to this committee, potentially, for discussion, and then for a recommendation that would go to the full board. Is that correct? I just want to let everyone know what the process is so they can be informed and engaged throughout the process.
Correct, and I think the subgroup's job is to help us figure out how to engage the public and inform.
Okay. Thank you.
And the chair would also recommend, if it's all right with you, Kathy, we need to set a deadline. This is not going to go on and
Correct.
on and on.
Right, so what's reasonable? From the court counsel side, administration side?
Well, I think the ordinance, any changes or a redraft of the current draft certainly could be done within a month if we were able to meet. But perhaps to allow us enough time, I would say October 1, and maybe that's not aggressive enough. I'm just mindful of everyone's schedules.
And Adam, what are your thoughts, time frame wise?
I share Scott's sentiment. I think October 1 would be ideal, and then we can revisit to see where, if we've met the communication needs, if we've defined enough of a strategy and topics of conversation to cover through communications. So once we get to that point, we can determine whether we need to extend or if the October 1 deadline would be sufficient.
Do you want to go with an October 1, or we just want to go, how about 90 days? Is that all right with everybody?
90 days.
90
No,
days,
I'm
90
with
days
that.
from the time we form? Dr. McGinnis?
Too long.
Yeah, that's far too long. In 90 days, we could have another 2,000 cases in St. Croix County. We could have another 500. We don't know. The pandemic isn't waiting for this process. It's out there and it's active, and I don't think that's acceptable at all. I would be much more comfortable with having the subcommittee's work completed by the next Health and Human Services Board meeting.
Why doesn't that be the goal? And then they can always extend it.
And Chair, so correct me if I'm wrong. When I said my understanding of the October 1 deadline was not necessarily that none of the work would be done until then. We would be, as communications, I'm going to still be meeting with HHS, meeting with public health, and creating communications moving forward. But what I would like to see out of this subcommittee is a better way to generate ideas so we know what topics to cover. I'm not going to wait between till each time we meet to draft communications and send them out. So we will still be sending out communications. If we weren't doing that, that would be a disservice to the county. So I'm really looking more for idea generation, using this committee as a sounding board, so we know what to communicate and when to communicate and how to communicate it. But there will be topics that are going to come up before then that we will communicate about to the best of our ability. That October 1 timeframe, that was just to revisit to see if the committee still needs to meet. So that was my thoughts on that.
Bob, your thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I would agree with Adam on the timeframe and revisiting the issue come October if it's not a complete work product.
Mr. Chair, I think in terms of the drafting of or redrafting and modifying the draft certainly can be complete by the next HHS board meeting.
Any other comments?
So in terms of the membership of the committee, Mr. Chair, I would suggest 3 members of the board. I don't know if the Supervisor Leaf had a different idea.
No, I think that's good. I mean, if it fits with we're a committee here, so you don't want to have too many people. It gets to be kind of clunky, but if that feels like it's right.
And Scott, with the 3 members from this board, we would also include Bob, Kelly, and Adam as well as advisors to that group. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, they would be support staff as well as myself and perhaps Heather Amos from our office, another attorney.
Yep, and that's a good idea. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Can you guys add a couple people from the general public?
I know this probably isn't my time to talk, but I know sometimes these kinds of things, as they form kind of this grassroots organization, it might be a idea that we think about an outside facilitator potentially. I don't know kind of what the ideas are behind how we're going to start this, but I know oftentimes when you have a hot topic, outside facilitation can come in real handy. And I'm just throwing that out there, take it or leave it, but it might be something that builds, I don't want to say trust, well, yeah, I'm going to say it. It will hopefully build trust with our public.
Scott, what's your thought on that?
Well, I thought this was going to be a kind of roll up your sleeves and let's get to it work group. So if we get a facilitator, I'm not sure that maybe that fits within the role of this group. But
Okay. Greg, did you have a comment?
Yes, based on the comments tonight, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be advisable to have at least one person from the public on this subcommittee. Did everybody go dead?
I'm sorry, we're not able to hear the conversation.
Yeah, I think you need to have your mics on, whoever's talking.
Because you are dealing with an ordinance language which can only be voted on and passed forward by board members. a member from the community or members from the community would be advisory only, just as persons from public health would be advisory only, giving their input, intellect, and reference to whatever the question was at hand, whether it be communication or whether it be ordinance.
Well, that makes sense, but yeah, I think to be transparent, I think we need to include somebody from the public also.
Scott, your comment?
I'm troubled by the fact that we've got a public relations mission, but we also have the drafting of an ordinance, and certainly the public's going to have input if and when that ordinance is. I think the time that for the public to become involved is when there is something that is being proposed, not at the time of drafting the ordinance, which is primarily the work of my office.
Correct. Mr. Administrator, comments?
Yeah, I think you're looking at two pieces to the puzzle here. One is you have an end goal of introducing an ordinance to see if the county board will adopt that. And the other piece to it is the educational piece, educating the public and everyone involved about what that ordinance means to them. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? So those are the two pieces you're looking at. The part that Corporation Counsel does with the ordinance is fairly legal in matter, and their office has a good handle on that. They have a draft that's, mostly complete. It really just needs some review and input from this board and then the county board for finalization. The other piece is the educational piece to that. And we have Adam that's working on that. We're very open to getting some input on how you want to be able to communicate this ordinance to the public. So those are the two pieces that we're working towards. I mean, I think they're kind of parallel and layered. And so the subcommittee, I think, going back to the time frame, I think you look at when is it that you want an ordinance in front of the county board, and then you strive to get the educational piece completed before then. I would really back up from what your end date is and then set deadlines prior to that. So when I look at the deadlines, November 3rd county board or October 16th county board. It's the month before then for Health and Human Services. So October 14th, Health and Human Services, or the September 16th, Health and Human Services. Which one could you make? The drafting the ordinance, that won't be the hard part. The educational piece will be the harder part. So for deadlines and for goals of the committee, that's how I would look at it. For public participation, the subcommittee is subject to the same open meeting law as the Health and Human Service Board. So we don't typically broadcast subcommittee meetings. We typically don't have public comment periods, but whoever is running the subcommittee can authorize whatever public comment or participation they deem necessary. The voting members, though, would be the 3 members of the board that are appointed onto that.
So your recommendation would be have something to come back to this group at no later than our October 14th meeting?
Sure.
So that we could turn around if this board and forward it to the county board in November.
Yep, if that's the goal of the Health and Human Services Board, that would be how I would outline the dates.
Okay. Thoughts on that? Scotty?
Are you, at this point, on this timeline, are you speaking of the education segment of this or the ordinance segment? To me, if we're going to do any type of an ordinance language outside of what would be covered in Chapter 42 of county ordinances, or expand further based on state statute, then we should get to it. And it should be ready and prepared for the September meeting of this board so that it can be brought forth and vetted.
Yep, and then that
There's
would be.
no, and as it has already been pointed out, we don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. If everyone keeps up with wearing the masks, we may see it drop down to where we're going to fully open. If we find in the fall, as some medical professionals have suggested, that we may see a second wave and it may be more virulent, then we may be looking at something totally different. But I think we should, if we're going to consider an ordinance on the county health officer with duties, then we need to do it as soon as possible.
So that'd be the October 6th County Board and then the September 16th Health and Human Services Board.
I agree with Scotty and everyone else. We have to move.
I would also agree.
Agree as well.
I agree too.
Scott, your thoughts?
Well, I think that's doable. And one thing I want to clarify, we're not going to alter the duties of the public health officer. Those are prescribed by the Wisconsin legislature. The duties are what they are. So when we talk about an ordinance, we're talking about if and when it absolutely becomes necessary to have some enforcement provisions, that we have them in the worst case scenario.
Correct.
Bob, your thoughts?
I'm fine with that recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Carol, anything?
I agree with the timeline. I think that this board should try to look at an ordinance in September, if possible, and then go to the county board in October, if that's the process. I just want to speak to the public participation part. Of course, it's always important, and when we can have public participation, that's a good thing. One of the challenges, I think, for this group, and I guess I envisioned it as a work group as well, would be to how would we choose the member of the public that we're going to include, or the two members of the public that we're going to include. I think that would be a significant challenge. So I guess my question for Adam is there a way that we can broadly capture, I mean, we talked about the ability to have public comment at a subcommittee meeting. Is there another way that we could broadly capture public input, outside of just the public comment meeting, to provide that feedback to the board, especially for board members that don't come to this meeting, or don't come to the subcommittee meeting, and when the board itself actually hears the ordinance?
Yep. So the two options that I can think of, the easiest option would be to distribute a survey. The survey could be distributed countywide, and to gather feedback about concerns or confusion around what an ordinance would mean. We can collect that data, and that can inform how we communicate it, or it can also inform the board on whether you choose or choose not to adopt an ordinance. The second option, which would be more time consuming, would be to set up a town hall. I'd have to look into what the logistics of that would be, whether I can institute that myself from my office, or if that's something that has to come through the board. I'm not sure about the legality of that. Sorry.
Also, you have to consider that we're in a pandemic, so we can't really have a big meeting. So that's probably not going to work.
Yeah, there have to be virtual options for those.
Yeah, I was, so when I say town hall, I'm talking virtual town hall. So there's some logistical issues with that, with getting participation. So my first option about the survey, that would be what I would push for. But then once we do have these meetings, anytime we get public comment, we will record that, and we will consider that as well.
I'm sorry.
Mike,
Yes, you are, sorry. We want to shoot for our September meeting for the ordinance at this group. So the subcommittee is going to have to work on that between now and then, right? That's number one. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, and then where we're going to have a short time frame also to work with Adam, or are we going to extend that area of that? Adam, is that going to give you enough time to be working with us, a month? Or do you want a little bit longer than that? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I just did, didn't I?
You did put me on the spot. Let's look at having that meeting in September, and I will do as much research and work with Scott about what that language of the ordinance would look like, so I can pinpoint some ideas that I think we might want to address for communications. And then once we get to the meeting, I can bring those findings to that meeting and we can talk about how to proceed.
Yeah, communications comes before the ordinance. It doesn't do any good to educate after the ordinance is approved, so.
Yeah.
He's got 28 days.
Yeah.
He's got 28 days.
That's a lot of time. Let's go.
So my understanding of that was, I guess we were bringing up the ordinance in September to talk about this more. If we're looking at actually voting for that, then I have my work cut out for me. But I will do my best to accommodate. We'll just have to, I'll set up meetings with Bob and Kelly and the group to figure out what's the best way to move forward with communications around that, what are some of the issues, and then look at implementing a survey. The survey itself, it's going to be a tight timeline, but I'll get started working on that right away.
But we
And
can
that's where you lean into the work group too.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
So we're going to look at communication and the ordinance. It'll come back to this committee next month. So that subcommittee, you got your work cut out for you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You need a motion in order to make this happen. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, now, I guess I'll go to Ken, or, yeah, well, I'll go again, yeah. At what point in time, or can we appoint our 3 members yet tonight? Or how do we want to do that?
Yes, you should name who those members are this evening.
Is that going to be approved by this group?
I think you, as the chairman, appoint those members.
Okay. Well, then, as chair right now, we're going to have Bob, Kelly, and Adam there. Kathy and Greg, you had a lot of interest in it, so I will appoint you and myself as members of this group.
I was wondering about Dr. McGinnis too. I would yield to have my position if we need the doctor on there, I think.
Okay, and Dr. McGinnis, are you okay with that?
I would be happy to be involved, yes.
Okay, we will do that then. And we will, I will be in touch with everybody within the next day or so on our first date, if that's okay. Because we're gonna get going on this one, all right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Let's take a 5-minute break. All right. We'll go back in, we'll go back up to item number 2 with our monthly financials. Faye?
Yes, sir. Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So in your board packet are the Health and Human Services and Health Center financials. Overall, we are on track. Our state revenues are where I expect them to be. As I've mentioned in previous meetings, our local revenues are running a little bit behind, and that just has to do with some of the change in the way that services are being delivered. There is a couple things that I just want to bring to the board's attention. On page 15 of the board packet, and this is our behavioral health purchase services. Within behavioral health, those are actually, doing really good, but it's kind of, again, some of the shifting of services from one department to another. So our substance use is running behind, high behind the scenes. It doesn't really have an impact now, but it could, come up later in the year if some of our other services start increasing it again a little bit more. As you can see from the graph that Ken has on the screen, or sorry, who's ever driving, I also wanted to talk about our children's services. They are currently running about 66% of the budget. So they have, if they continue on their current trend, children's services will likely go over a budgeted amount. These are out-of-home placements that have been court-ordered. There has been some increase in out-of-home placements, but in addition to that, we just have some really high-cost placements right now just to really complex family situations. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. We are continuing to monitor that and, do everything we can to minimize those expenses while keeping the, safety, health and safety of everyone in mind. So that's really all I had to point out on HHS. Otherwise, the other departments are on track. Are there any questions specific to HHS?
Comments or questions? Or both? Okay, seeing none, we thank you, young lady.
Just one more comment about the health center campus. So this report does not include July revenues. So all of the other programs, the July revenues are in that July year-to-date amount. The nursing home Orchard View does not include the July revenues. So that is about $300,000 for the nursing home and $86,000 for Orchard View. Those come in a little bit later in the month. We also do have some deferred revenue that we got through CARES funding for the health center that is not yet reflected in revenue. So that will be moving over there shortly.
And now that we've got second floor, Faye, up in Orchard View, is that revenue totally different than what's in the first floor, or is it the same?
Nope, it would be the same. So right now, Orchard View, it's an assisted living. So the calculation, it's a room and board, and then based on level of care for the revenue that, gets calculated per person who's admitted.
Okay.
And they are continuing to take admissions both in the nursing home and in the assisted living.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
Any
you're
other
welcome.
questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Faye. Good job. We're going to go to the HHS Board Orientation presentations. Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're continuing this month with our board orientation by having 3 divisions speak to you tonight. We're trying to limit the presentations to around 10 minutes each. Tonight, the ADRC, CCS, I almost got that wrong, and our Records Division will be presenting, and I believe Brad from the ADRC will go first, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brad Beckman. I'm the administrator of the Aging Disability Resource Center of St. Croix County. And you do have a PowerPoint, and we'll just kind of quickly go through it. I know if you have questions, I know many of you know what the ADRC does. So, but the mission statement, the purpose of the Aging Disability Resource Center is to empower and support older people or people who have a disability and their families by serving as a central source of information, assistance, and support and access to community resources. We have key programs, and they're listed there. Information and assistance, options counseling, our elder and disability specialists, dementia specialists, our senior nutrition programs, home delivered meals, transportation support group, day away, and healthy aging classes. And then who do we serve? The ADRC serves adults living in Wisconsin, St. Croix County, who are in need of information about maintaining independence, long-term care options, disability services, mental health care, Social Security and Medicare benefit programs, and much more. The includes people who we meet are the following criteria. The individuals are over 60 and age 18 to 59 who have a disability, have mental health concerns, have substance abuse concerns, are young adults who are transitioning to adulthood. There are families, caregivers, and advocates for any of these individuals. How can we assist with maintaining your independence, choice for long-term care and related services, Medicare benefits and other health-related benefits, Social Security benefits, support services and resources in your community? I put down the history. Many of you have, in 2008, the Department of Aging and Long-Term Care Support Units merged to become the Aging Disability Resource Center here in St. Croix County. The ADRC was placed as one unit under Health and Human Services Department of St. Croix County. On June 31st, 2014, the ADRC was located, we started out at the Government Center in Hudson, Wisconsin. On July 1st, 2014, the ADRC, all Health and Human Service units, and Veterans Service Office were located to the new St. Croix County Service Center in New Richmond. And then what they did was they merged the aging and the disability services and then worked with the adult protection services to meet the needs of the most vulnerable in the community. We have presently 9 senior centers here in St. Croix County, and a designated staff person attends monthly meetings of all volunteer senior center board meetings for information with issues that affect older adults. Nearly all the staff of the ADRC speak or visit at a senior center yearly. Informational topics range from Medicare to memory screens. Then I listed the organizational, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the point to do it. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we went from that huge, long waiting list and now we're down to 0 with the staff that we've got, especially for the new folks?
Right. The ADRC was started because long-term care had a waiting list of around 200 here in St. Croix County. So the goal was ADRC, everybody was eligible for services under a managed care organization, either Care Wisconsin, Inclusa, or IRIS. So the team all worked on that, and at our board meetings, we meet once a month. We have 11 board members. They're all elected, or we have county board representation, target members that are dealing with different older people or people with disabilities or caregivers. So they, let's see, I forgot the question. Okay, how we went down to 0 on the waiting list. Yeah, the waiting list was, we had over 200, but we were able to maneuver them to go to the managed care organization or IRIS. And actually, as we stand right now, we have a 0 waiting list. So you come in for services, we meet with you, you meet the eligibility functional and financially, then you will actually be screened in. And so we're very proud of that number. And we go through that on the board rotation of where they land from Inclusa, Care Wisconsin, or the IRIS programs. The organizational structure is listed. This was done by the original board. The County Board of Supervisors. We work with the Health and Human Service Board and Council on Aging and Disabilities. And as you can see, that line drawn is equal. And then the Human Service Director oversees the ADRC administrator. Then I oversee all the staff, and there's different staff that are listed, probably about 50 staff that are under the ADRC. So that just kind of gives you a structure and what their positions are. Like I mentioned, we have 9 nutrition sites. And just to give you a heads up, COVID-19 has affected the senior centers, and we've had to shut them down. We are doing a home-delivered meal and a grab-and-go concept, and I'm happy to say right now we're serving over 200 meals a day, which is, and it's adding about 4 or 5 a day or a week. And what's really proving out, we do a 6-month staff, and we just met last Friday, our board, and we always provide the board. Obviously, congregate sites have stopped delivering, but home delivered now, we've actually served 5,000 more, almost 5,100 meals more in 2020 than we had previously. So you're seeing there's a real big need in the community, and as we work with public health and what's the senior center going to look like when we open, and working with the state partners to see how we're going to maneuver that. And then I listed the elder benefit specialists. I'm not going to read everything here. It tells what they do over 60, who they help with. Disability specialist, they deal with the 18 to 59 population. They're very busy. We have 2, I should mention, we have 2 elder specialists, 2 disability specialists that work on assist with applications, appeal process, and that's listed. And then the information assistants and options counselors, we have 3 of them that they're certified social workers who provide unbiased information, and then they work with public planning for long and short-term care needs and assist with community outreach, health promotion, and prevention services. Our dementia care specialist, we've had this person for about 4 or 5 years. She just came on board, our new person, and she's working with dealing with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, which is a huge issue, and the ADRCs across the state are starting to provide that service. But we in St. Croix were fortunate enough to get this person through a pilot program about 3 years ago. So they've been a very big added part of our team. Caregiver support team, we have an outreach coordinator. They're doing support groups, and it lists where they're provided. Annual caregiving conference, which will be virtual this year in September, because we can't, people can't attend it. Specialized van transportation, it is still going. We're doing the medical. People can get medical rides. And then it talks about 60 and over. And the medical rides we're following the guidance of public health and all of that, where they wear a mask, they wear gloves, they sanitize the area, but they take one person at a time, and it's just medical needs, and they are still meeting that need. And then we do healthy aging classes, and we're doing all of that on virtual in our memory unit, and living well with chronic conditions and stepping on falls prevention. So them are all being provided virtual, and this time get an opportunity to ask any questions.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Kara?
Thanks for the presentation, Brad. It's very informative. I have one question. I know you mentioned there's been some shifting with how services are provided, and have you had any challenges on communicating that to your the customers that you serve or the folks that you serve in that process, and how are you adapting to that?
Right, we're all working remotely now, but people do go in the office and all of that. And what we've done is, because especially with so many older people, that we're reaching out and connecting, and we're doing everything by virtual, and we're working with our systems, the 365, the Zoom option, and we're really reaching out. And the other thing too is the site managers are calling all of the home delivered every week just to see where they're at. Do they have needs in the community? We're really reaching out for people, and that's what we really want people to contact the ADRC. We do have a person at the office that will answer that and direct it to the staff. So it's been a real, people, we're working remotely, but the work hasn't stopped, and people are still getting served, and I think it's important to let people know that if they need assistance and help, to give us a call. We're there, and we're willing to help out.
I have a question as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can hear me. First of all, thank you, Brad, for all of the work that you guys do. It's very important. I'm just curious, you mentioned that you're working on virtual options for residents. What type of participation are you seeing for that? Has it been pretty effective? Are you seeing decent participation, or has that been a challenge as well?
The challenge has been trying to make sure people, the first question we asked to a lot of our seniors was, do they even have computers? Do they have social media? How do they know? So we're working with them. People have, when they've called and stuff, we've worked with them, and the virtual has actually went pretty well. Our support groups right now, they're meeting on support groups virtually, and we have the numbers, the day away services, and all of that. They're still reaching out to our coordinator, and we're still are meeting the needs. And they're still meeting on our support groups. At least 4 or 5 have been meeting on a regular basis, which I think is pretty good. So, and then we're also having an opportunity for, with tech, I'm part of a Hudson group, and what they're doing is at the YMCA, the Hudson Youth are going to be providing training on Zoom and Facebook and FaceTime, and so people can learn that. And we're going to have social distance, 10 people, have computer access, and people can sign up. And if we have more people that want to do it, we'll add more classes. But we're really trying to reach out. Same thing with our caregiving conference. We're going to do it virtually, and I think that's going to be, we're working with WITC to make sure that's all connected and working. So
That's great. Thank you.
you bet.
Anyone else with a question, comment?
Brad, I have a question for you.
Yeah, Dr.
When you
McGinnis.
look at the customers of the ADRC or clients, how many of those are folks with disability and how many of those are in the older or elderly classification? Do you have a breakdown?
I have my stats here, but I don't have them available right now. But obviously, as you look at the census, and we've done a lot of demographic things, the senior population continues to grow, the 60 and over. And same thing with the disability population. We're working with a lot of the disability, especially the youth that are going into adulthood. But I don't have the exact number, but I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to recognize your participation in some of the community groups. That's been very, very valuable.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Brad, thank you and the entire staff. You guys do a tremendous job up there. Hats off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for staying late. Our next presenter will be Rebecca Kerr from our Comprehensive Community Services Program, and Rebecca started with us, well, about a month before I started, so in May, I believe, of this year. And Becky, if you're ready, go ahead.
I am, and yes, I'm Becky Kerr. I have been here about a month longer than Bob, so not too much longer. So I don't know who's running the slides. If you get to, this looks like the records. Okay, here we go. So yeah, you can go to the next slide. So yeah, Comprehensive Community Services, we call it CCS. What is it? It's really a recovery-focused integrated behavioral health program for both adults with mental illness and or substance use, as well as children with severe emotional disturbance. We provide a coordinated and comprehensive array of recovery services, treatment, and psychosocial rehab services that really assist those individuals to utilize their professional, community, and natural resources to address the needs that they have. Go to the next. The program is really person-centered or family-centered when you're working with the kids. And we really use that customer-directed approach. So again, person-centered. While CCS services are person and family-centered, the services that are provided by a team of professionals, peer specialists, and supports, all coordinated by our CCS service facilitators. The CCS programs are really designed to be community-based, enhance recovery, and continually work on quality improvement. It is a voluntary program. Folks don't have to enroll in it. They have that choice, but they do have to meet that functional and financial eligibility. DHS really looks at CCS, and in particular, the Division of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services really views CCS, that benefit, as one of the ways to transform the mental health and substance abuse delivery system in Wisconsin. It's anticipated that over time, the success of the recovery-based program will really stimulate changes in existing local programs and facilitate a seamless system of services based on hope, empowerment, and recovery. And what are St. Croix County's CCS program? What are our guiding principles? And they're here for you. We really want meaningful participation by the service recipients, and they pull in those people that they want supporting them. We also advocate, and it's really critical to that system design, implementation, and ongoing quality improvement. The services are really focused on successful living in the community and provide access to jobs, housing, and transportation, as well as health, educational, vocational, social, spiritual, and recreational resources. Those service facilitators really encourage and try to make full use of the natural supports that a person needs so that when they graduate from the program, they have those supports in place and helping them. Service recipients are empowered to be in control of their lives, and they're given the resources and skills to be responsible for their actions and their decisions. Families of children and adolescents involved in the mental health and substance abuse system are recognized as central partners in the service and treatment process. Treatment and other services are cost effective and efficiently use all the available resources, including those natural supports, to achieve the positive outcomes that they have. The mental health and substance abuse system takes a flexible, creative, and at times non-traditional approach to providing services. So services are comprehensive, culturally relevant, and within available resources, make every effort to meet the needs of those service recipients, their families, and the communities. So as I shared, I've only been here about a month longer than Bob. Our program is currently in a state of transition. When CCS was developed and implemented within the county, it was back in 2016. It really was pulled from children's services and behavioral health. So it was just kind of added on to other folks' job. And as the program has really grown over time, and so it really was determined that it needed to be its own division and separated out from behavioral health and children's services. So with that, there was the administrator, which is me. I was hired. We had the service director in place. We also had, previously it was, we had supervisors, one from the behavioral health department and one from children's services that were working as, in addition to their duties in those departments, also as the CCS supervisors. So with separating out this division, we actually have the opportunity to actually hire 2 CCS supervisors. I'm happy to have both of them starting in those roles next week. One is an internal candidate, so knows she's currently a service facilitator, so has that background within CCS, and the other one is an external candidate that's coming in. In addition to the CCS supervisors, we have 3 1/3 mental health professionals. We share one MHP with our behavioral health department, and those folks work in conjunction with our service facilitators and really help determine whether there's the clinical need to sign off on those CCS plans, those recovery plans. We also have 19 full-time equivalent service facilitators, and there's actually 2 additional ones budgeted for 2020. So we would have, when fully staffed, we would have 21 service facilitators. At this point with COVID, we didn't know how things were gonna go. For about a month and a half, 2 months, referrals had really kind of slowed down, but now they're back to kind of pre-COVID numbers. So we're really on target to kind of get those projections that we thought we would for this upcoming year. So at some point we'll be filling those other 2. I don't know when that'll be yet though. We also have lots of support from the records department and finance departments. We're having to monitor all of the notes to make sure that they meet that MA requirements for billing, so we get a lot of support from them. I should also mention our service facilitators that work with our youth. They also, if those kids meet waiver eligibility, that one worker is doing both of those programs. So typically our CCS, I think we have about 40 kids that are duly eligible for waiver services in addition to CCS. And so our CCS service facilitators that serve those youth are really doing both of those programs. So that way those families just have that one worker working off of one plan versus multiple people in the home. All right, next slide. And this is just some data for you. If you look in 2018, we averaged 99 recipients a month that we were serving. And we have recipients that kind of come into the program and then exit at times and come back if they need other things that they want to work on. So at any given time, we have people discharging and potentially enrolling within the program. So in 2018, we had 99 service recipients that we served each month. In 2019, it went up to 132. And within quarter one and quarter two of this year, we were up to 144 each month. So it's definitely growing. Just additional interesting little piece is that about 2/3 of the recipients that we work with are children and youth, and only 1/3 of those are adults. And I kind of already touched on this. CCS works really closely with the other departments within HHS because there's a lot of crossover even with behavioral health. So and we work very closely with our contracted providers as well to make sure that we're meeting those needs of the recipients. Over time, I'm hoping that we can just grow and improve our services so that we see this continue to be an area that provides the revenue for the county. So we want to certainly grow this program, but that'll take some time. We got some work to do to make things even better. So any questions that I can try to answer?
Questions or comments for Kristen?
I have a question quickly.
Sure.
Do you have any, this is Dr. McGinnis, do you have any understanding of what your numbers might be or averages might be for the second quarter? Or has COVID decreased that, increased that?
Actually, second quarter was about the same. I think it came in right at 144.
Okay.
So it was the same as first quarter. I just looked today at our enrollment numbers for where we are today, and they were at 136. So still pretty consistent. We had some discharge, but we have quite a few referrals out there too. So.
And do you feel with all the restrictions that the pandemic has brought on that you're still able to provide those services and meet the individual's needs and continue them on that road to recovery?
It's certainly a different challenge for sure, because we are having people do more of that telehealth, and where possible, not meeting face-to-face at all. However, if there's a clinical need, we're really looking at that case by case on whether our providers might need to see those recipients face-to-face. So I do think COVID has definitely presented a challenge, especially when working with our youth, because sometimes, they're not always wanting to be on a computer screen or see, a service facilitator that they've maybe never met in person. So there's definitely some challenges that have gone with it, but so far I think we're doing all right.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing any. Kristen, thank you, and please pass on our grateful thanks to a very talented and definite, dedicated staff of folks you guys have got up there. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. And we'll move on to item number 4, Wind Sighting Council update.
One more.
Huh?
One more.
One more?
Yeah. Thank you, Becky, first of all. Yeah. I did want to mention, too, I don't think Becky said this, but the CCS division received a 2-year accreditation after a DHS survey recently. I'm not sure if that was mentioned, and I think that happened since the last board meeting. They do nice work. Their program philosophy also aligns nicely with the behavioral health home concept, which would be a nice thing if we get that pilot. But our next presenter is Tammy Wilson with the Records Division, who's here. And I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
And I apologize to you right off the bat. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to overlook you.
Oh, that's totally fine. I knew someone would rear your back in. As Bob said, I'm Tammy Wilson. I'm with the Records Division. I've been with St. Croix County for 11 years now. The Records mission statement is to provide and maintain a high standard record that is an efficient, productive, and cost-effective information system which is conveniently accessible to appropriate and authorized service providers and meets all applicable and administrative, legal, and regulatory requirements governing the Department of Human Services. Again, I am the supervisor. We fall under Bob administration. I have 5 record technicians that are listed. When you think about a record, some of you don't really know, maybe not think what it really actually is. We all go to the doctor, we all go to the clinic. But the legal health record is the documentation of healthcare services provided to an individual during any aspect of healthcare delivery in any type of healthcare organization. The documentation that comprises the legal health record may physically exist in separate and multiple paper-based or electronic systems. We have a hybrid system. We have both paper and we have both electronic. The legal health record serves to support the decisions made in a patient's care, support the revenue sought from third-party payers, document the services provided as legal testimony regarding the patient's illness or injury, responses to treatment, and caregiver decision, and it serves as the organization's business and legal record. So what do we do? It was nice to come in, I think, last when you heard all the divisions speak. What we do primarily is we do a lot of administrative support for all of the divisions. And some of the things that the record technicians do is assist with telephone and walk-in requests for records and information. We do transcription, we do filing, we do file maintenance, which is the creation of a chart down to discharge, however long that may be. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's 20 years. We have electronic health record maintenance, which is under kind of the same as file maintenance. We do scanning and uploading. We do auditing and chart review, release of information, retention and destruction based on county retention policies, and we enter billing for emergency services and telehealth. Again, these are some of the divisions we support. The regulations we follow are federal, HIPAA, 42 CFR, and Wisconsin statutes. Our transcription services is done through WinScribe. We share that with the Sheriff's Department. Our transcriptionists, we have two. One does it full-time. We transcribe most of the psychiatric intakes, psychological admissions, and all the progress notes, independent notes, and discharge summaries. And from July 2019 to present, we have completed over 2,200 dictation jobs. Our turnaround time for transcription is typically 2 days. Dictation can vary in length from 15 seconds to over 30 minutes. And the dictation to transcription ratio is 1 minute of dictation to 6 minutes of transcription, is how you kind of figure how long it will take depending on quality. And we have 2 certified medical transcriptionists within our division. Release of information. Records are authorized and released in accordance with all applicable federal and state laws. Information can be redacted, child protection. That can take a long time to redact depending on how much is requested. Background checks are for foster parents, step parents, licensed daycare, and some of our stats are listed there. Children's service records released in 2019 were 84. Background checks were 336 we did. And release of information, 2018 we had 991. In 2019 we had 831. A little bit of history of St. Croix County. I put some fun facts in the end. So we started off with our St. Croix County Insane Asylum. And why I talk about that is I actually have records from that facility in my office to this day. And the book in the middle is that record. And we opened in March 10th of 1887. And our first entry was April 27th, 1897. I'm sorry, it was March 10th, 1897. So we, it was about a month after was our first entry. We started off with 100 patients, and we figured when it ended up in 1974, when we went to the 74 building, which is on the next slide, we ended up with 1,988 patients through that asylum. And so the 74 building is there, and you can see our new Health and Human Services building. Medical record numbers were first assigned in 1974. I believe we started with 1, but what I can tell is we started, 50 is in our office right now, and we're up to 36,400 and something records. Some of the auditing that we do, I wanted to give you a couple of stats. We do a behavioral health audit. So every week, a review of 100% of progress notes for the mental health therapists and substance use counselors is completed. Completion of notes for scheduled appointments is verified along with the review that the correct billing charges are used. As of July 17th, 5,409 notes have been reviewed with 41 note errors, which is a 0.76% error correction rate. A physical check of all behavioral health charts is completed annually, and charts that meet destruction criteria are destroyed. And to date, we have over 36,000 medical record numbers assigned. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? All right, we thank you, young lady, and your staff as well. You guys do a super job. Keep up the great work.
Thank
You're
you.
a bunch of dedicated folks up there.
Yep, thank you very much.
You betcha.
Thank you, Tammy. And that book on the St. Croix County Insane Asylum is fascinating, that record. The next agenda item, Mr. Chair, was the letter to the Wind Sighting Council. Correct? Okay. All right, so at the last board meeting in July, the board asked me to send a follow-up letter to the Wind Sighting Council requesting a response from them to board concerns around the health impact of wind energy. To this date, we did send that letter, and a copy of it's in the board packet along with previous correspondence. We haven't received a response or any communication from the Wind Sighting Council as of today. I'll have to keep the board informed if we do receive some correspondence or if some other action is requested. Sorry, Dave.
That was a very short point. Are there any questions?
No, but Mr. Chairman, I do have additional information.
Okay.
So, as you may or may not know, under PSC 128, the Wind Sighting Council is appointed by the PSC Board, which is a 3-member board. And the council, of course, has not met, but I'd like to share with you a letter which was sent by Glenn Schwalbeck, public engineer, who is also a member of the Wind Sighting Council. This was actually posted to the docket, and it was posted between the period of 5/29/2020 and 6/9/2020. This comment by Glenn Schwalbeck, P.E., 1900 Moon River Drive, De Pere, Wisconsin. I am a member of the Wind Sighting Council, WSC, to the PSCW. The WSC has a statutory obligation to provide an assessment of scientific research along with regulatory developments every 5 years to the legislature. A report was due in late 2019. Due to illness of a key member and a misunderstanding of some members that the PSC was to convene the WSC, a report did not get produced. When those issues were resolved and 2 members were ready to request the PSCW to arrange a meeting, COVID-19 was upon us. Since the last legislative report was submitted, more scientific literature has been published regarding health impacts from wind turbines. My conclusion is that pulsating infrasound and low-frequency noise, ILFN, produced by the wind turbines negatively impacts as much as 30% of humans. Legislative and/or regulatory bodies in other counties have addressed this issue for years and have reduced the impact in more responsible manner. In the U.S. and Wisconsin, the wind industry and wind industry advocates have argued against safer setbacks and IFLN limitations. The PSCW initiated a study about 8 years ago in the Shirley Wind Farm in Brown County, where only 8 tall wind turbines, operate. 3 homes were abandoned so that the residents could eliminate their negative health experiences. The 4 acoustic consultants who conducted the study called for additional studies because of the data and human impact that they observed. In 2017, 4 acoustic experts, including 2 who worked on the Shirley Wind Farm study, published their opinions that a limit on audible noise of about 40 dBA provides for a turbine setback which results in less impact from IFLN. PSCW regulations limit daytime noise levels to 50 dBA, which is twice as loud as 40 dBA. And then he goes on to speak about the documentary that was produced in Germany. And he asks, when developers and regulators have the ability but need to do the right thing to eliminate the negative health impacts upon residents. Glenn R. Schwalbeck, P.E. I affirm that these comments are true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. Glenn Schwalbeck, P.E. The response from the Public Service Commission is a standard response, and I will share that with you. Thank you for your letter regarding Wisconsin's Wind Siting Council, WSC. The WSC is attached to the Public Service Commission, PSC, by Wisconsin Statute 15.797, Sub 1B, and provides for the PSC to appoint members to the WSC for terms lasting 3 years. PSC staff may provide administrative staffing support to the WSC. Prior to the 2004 WSC report, the WSC met 9 times to discuss and work on the report. With the amount of work and collaboration that would be needed to produce a report, one would surmise that the WSC would have to meet several times to review materials, draft and edit a new report. This is work that the PSC and its staff cannot do on behalf of the WSC. Scheduling and attending meetings are responsibilities of the members of the WSC. The WSC chairperson or any other member of the WSC can call for a meeting. PSC staff have not received communications from WSC members calling for a meeting or asking for support to call for a meeting of the WSC. A cursory inspection of the PSC WSC docket 5-GF-228 shows that WSC members have not met since October 9th, 2014. As for the vacancies on the WSC, this is a matter that the PSC intends to address this fall. Several of the appointed members' terms expired recently on July 1st, and they will have to be reappointed or replaced. Additionally, you may wish to voice your concerns about missing the report deadline directly to the WSC members. A list of members and their addresses can be found in the docket cited above. Thank you again for your letter expressing your concerns. Please feel free to contact me if you have any further questions. Rebecca Cameron Vlack, Chairperson, Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. We are looking at a significant issue throughout Wisconsin with wind turbine development as well as commercial solar panel development, which also falls under PSC 128. And the issue comes in that for all of the persons who were here today screaming about their constitutional rights, we have property owners, homeowners, farmers, business owners who right in our county, in the town of Forest, as well as the proposed commercial solar farm, which Erin and Erin Prairie and town of Richmond are being looked at. And we need to address it as a county. And there are several ways within PSC 128 to address that, which is not on the agenda this evening, but should be a future agenda item. The PSC is not going to come forth and cause anyone to produce a report. They're stepping away, saying that the council is responsible for this. The individuals who make up the wind siting council are not going to come forward and call for a meeting. This is a hot topic, and Wisconsin is heating up. There are new commercial wind developments that are going in just outside of Eau Claire, and those people are fighting for their lives. They do not want these. And frankly, our green energy portfolio in this state, we have already surpassed. When you look at commercial wind turbines and commercial solar panels and you start adding up the federal credits, this is where the money is made. And you do not have to be a utility. Any one of us could form an LLC and create a wind turbine project. We could apply for federal credits and we'd get them. And they're not all based on production credits. This is a money game. And unfortunately, in the end, St. Croix County will pay a dear price, as will several other counties in Wisconsin, as they have already found in Brown County. So the letters are fantastic that have been written addressing the issue of not having that wind siting report, but it's not going to happen, and I'm not holding my breath. As an HHS board, we need to take hard and decisive action on this, and we need to hold our state representatives accountable. And that is what I will say on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to see further purview of PSC 128 as an agenda item, at which time we can be open for more information.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on. Are there any additional requests for future agenda items from anyone? Hearing none, we'll move on. Are there any announcements or correspondence? Anybody have any comments, questions? Mr. Administrator, you've made it through your first official HHS board meeting tonight. I congratulate you.
And my first day.
There you go. And with
Started
that,
at
our
6
next
a.m.
meeting will be September 16th. One quick thing for Greg and Dr. McGinnis. If you guys are okay, I'm going to get a hold of Colleen, and she'll be able to work with Kelly and Bob and Adam, and we'll hook up an agenda for a time and a place if that's okay with you guys. So be looking for something coming from Colleen if that's okay.
That sounds fine.
Okay. Greg, you're okay with that too? Okay, very good. And with that, thank you, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned.